Hidizs MS2 is my favorite in-ear in a sub $100 category. New Hidizs MM2 enters. Can this newbie beat the old champion? Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Now today we are talking about Hidizs MM2 in-ears. These cost $90, like 89, which is 90, and I'm especially interested in these because previous model from this same series called MS2 is actually for quite some time now my favorite sub $100 in-ear. And competition is really strong here. We have Moondrop Aria, I believe they're below 100. Then we have Tin Hi-Fi T2 Plus. Theo had a very interesting model, I forgot its name. I'll put that on the screen later when editing. But I kept those older MS2s as my favorite sub 100 in-ears because they just struck balance really well by having both highly detailed but still full and energetic sound, and I appreciate that very much. So lately I basically refused a lot of in-ears to review because there is so much brands out there. Some are some time on the market, some are completely new, and if I accepted every in-ear in sub $100 category, I would have to make a review like every day here on this channel. It would be exhausting. But when Hidizs asked me, do you want to check our new MM2? I was like, well, of course, because I know what Hidizs can do on a limited budget, and they're really good at bringing out great DACs that doesn't cost arm and leg, great in-ears that doesn't cost arm and leg, and I was like, yeah, bring it on. Here it is, basically the same price as older MS2, just newer and with few tricks up their sleeve. It says here it's one magnetostatic balanced driver, the other one is dynamic hybrid driver. I don't care about that, I care about how it sounds. So I'll try to keep this short and inform you about how they really sound, not bother you with tech specs, materials, such details. That's all, at least that all should be in purpose of the best possible fidelity at this price point. In the box you get this pretty slick looking case. I don't know if this is a real leather or not, but it sure looked like one. It's really neat, it's nice, pretty, I like it, but more important than that, you get these. And these actually tune your sound, actually the sound of these in-ears. How? By, you see here, there is this sort of venting, opening thing like that. I don't know how it's called on an in-ear. On a speaker that would be bass reflex port. So you can unscrew this one that comes by default, as you can see here, and just remove it, and instead of it put one of these red or silver colored ones. Now the one that is installed by default is the medium, or basically the one that has most balanced levels of low frequencies and high frequencies. If you put the red one, that's the bassy one. Then bass is elevated, and if you put the silver one, then highs are slightly elevated. And by doing so, you can just tilt tonality to your liking, and I think that's a pretty nice touch. It's like having three slightly differently tuned in-ears at the cost of one pair. I like that. What's not to like there? So let's talk about how these actually sound. And I've started listening them with these default venting ports. In this case, these sound basically V-shaped. There's quite a bit of bass, there's bass punch and bass oomph. There's quite a bit of highs, they're well extended, airy. You hear a lot of tiny things happening and going on in the recording. And basically that upper mid-range part and lower highs, those are elevated. Those are seriously peaking. And because of that, you feel that resolution of these in-ears is great. But sometimes vocals, especially female ones, can sound a little bit spitty and sibilant, you know. But that lower mid-range, that part of mid-range where meat and lushness to vocals come from, that part is retracted, because these are quite V-shaped sounding in-ears. And I truly wished that they have just a little bit more lushness and juiciness and fullness in the mid-range. For me, this is, I don't know, this is very spicy sound. It's attractive sound, it's that you got highs, you got lows, you get plenty of these. Quality of both highs and lows is pretty good, because bass is weighty and authoritative. Highs are very detailed, very extended. Everything is quick and dynamic sounding, but I'm just missing that bonding link, which is that full lower mid-range. And then I started switching these venting ports, or nozzles, or however you call them. And first I tried with silver ones, which tilt tonality to higher frequencies. And I was surprised that it wasn't done in an overly aggressive way. Basically what I've heard is that bass line, which is elevated, decreased somewhat. It became more resolving because of that. And highs, upper mid-range, that just kept being as elevated as before. And because of that, everything sounded brighter and even more open, but I would call that sound bright, detailed, and analytical. And I definitely preferred balanced nozzles over these silver ones. Then I've added red ones, which are bassy ones. And true to the name, bass was elevated quite a bit and everything sounded warmer and fuller and like ho ho ho. But the cost was that bass line definitely started bleeding over mid-bass, mid-range even, and the overall sound and the overall tonality of these at that moment can be described as really bassy. And some details, some huskiness from vocals, some fine textures, or some really quick transients of some notes and string plucks are run over by bass. Everything was just more bold but slightly liquefied, something like that, because of this really, really overwhelming bass. So I've returned to the balanced ones, the balanced nozzles that came installed by default, and I really think these are the most neutral sounding ones. To keep this review shorter and to the point, I will not compare these with every in-ear that I've tried in a similar price range. I'll just compare it to Hidizs' own MS2, which I said are basically my favorite at this price point. So if the newbie can beat old champion, then by default it becomes the new champion. So I quickly connected MS2 and I realized why I really loved these in-ears. They are highly detailed and they have slight U-shaped, V-shaped thing going on, but really slight. They again have emphasis on the upper mid-range, but it's not as prominent as with newer MM2. And they again have slight emphasis on the bass line, but again, it's not as prominent as with newer MM2. Meaning that this mid-range, especially that lower mid-range part and upper bass, those are more prominent in the mix. And to my ears, that makes everything sound a little bit fuller and lusher and more relaxed. If you listen, for example, to the same guitar note over new MM2, it sounds more edgy because of more elevated upper mid-range. You will not hear much of fullness and lushness and juiciness of things like string plucks with new MM2. With older MS2, all of that sounds fuller, juicier, and like having more body. So if you're listening to the guitar, I think these have equally good amount of details. It's just not as much prominent and elevated in those upper sections. But the body of every tone, you feel that guitar actually has more body. And the same thing for the singer. It doesn't matter if it's a male or female singer. You feel that there is more of a body and chest behind vocal, more flesh, while these will promote huskiness and spittiness more and retract that fullness and body. And also, older MS2 are a little bit easier to drive. It takes just maybe a notch or two. You need to click a button once or twice to get these at the same volume level as these. These are just a little bit livelier and more easygoing, and that's good for DACs and amps that are not that powerful, meaning all portable DACs. So, to put it shortly, and not to beat around the bushes, I still prefer Hidizs MS2. This is still the best sounding in-ear below $100 that I've ever tried and I've ever had. I don't know, I guess if you really like that V-shaped response, if you really like your bass line and your highs to be forward and your mid-range to be retracted, I guess MM2 can be a decent offer for you. And if you think you would enjoy playing with these different nozzles and tuning tonalities slightly different to the warmer side or brighter side, but to my mind and to my ears, MS2 still reign supreme. And you can still find them. They cost the same amount of money as new MM2. So, is newer always better? In my opinion, no, it's not. It's good. This is a good sounding in-ear, but for my taste, it's just a little bit too much V-shaped, and there's some naturalness and fullness and lushness lacking from the vocals, and everything else that has that full mid-range tone to it. Timbre and tonality suffer because of that. MS2 does not have that kind of problem. It is in-ear that's better tuned to my taste, fuller, more realistic, more natural. I really hope Hidizs will continue to make both of these simultaneously. I really wouldn't like to see MS2 going out of production for MM2, because that, in my opinion, would be a downgrade. I don't want to see that happen. So Hidizs, if you're watching this, please continue making excellent MS2. You guys watching this, new is not always better. If you are aiming for in-ears below $100, MS2, great in-ears. I'll keep these. They're still going to be the one to beat here on this channel, among the things that I've heard, of course. Like, comment, subscribe, consider becoming a patron. That helps the channel, and see you next time. Bye.